Hello, I'm Bahri. So welcome to the presentation, the talk about Turkish series as tools for language learning. So I will be introducing, as a Turkish person, how to have a good grasp of Turkish and the Turkish culture while being entertained at the same time. Since Turkish series have been very popular recently worldwide, I decided that it is the best way, the best international way to learn Turkish if you don't live in Turkey, because being exposed to a language might help you learn a language as difficult as Turkish. So I'm going to be introducing myself first. So who am I? As you can see, there's Ben Kimim, which means who am I in Turkish. So I've included that. I'm a high school student actually in Turkey at the Koç School in Istanbul. I'm in 10th grade and I'm almost 17. So I have been intrigued by language learning methods and linguistics since my childhood. I've been trying to learn various languages by myself at home, either at school or at home, like German, Italian, Chinese, Russian, Hebrew, and Japanese. However, currently I only speak English, Turkish, French fluently, and Italian, German, and a bit of Spanish, like an elementary beginner level. I'm deeply interested in how distinct cultures express themselves through like loan words or just like colloquial diction. And I love to explore the linguistic aspects of words that I come across in school or just like in social media. And of course, I have a special interest in understanding how foreigners learn the Turkish language, since it's a very difficult and a language that has a very confusing grammar structure. So that's who am I. So let's continue through my presentation. So I've included this chart that demonstrates Turkic languages. So in order to just, I believe, start learning a language, we have to understand where it comes from. As like a language lover, I love to explore where the language comes from, where did it derive from. So as you can see, it's an Altaic language, and it's a Western Altaic and a Turkic language, which is in the same family as Kazakh, Uzbek, Tajik, as you can see, and it's also kind of related to Korean, Japanese, but I'd say that they're not that similar. However, I think the grammar structure is like a bit close because of that. So that's interesting. Um, so Turkish dialects. Turkish has um, a lot of dialects within Turkey. So I only have information about Turkish dialects in Turkey, not like Azerbaijani or like other Turkish dialects. However, as I'm living in Istanbul, I only speak the modern Turkish, the Istanbul Turkish, as you might say. So, for example, the Ege region, the Pearl region, closer to Greek islands, it's more of a Mediterranean region, which is affected from Greek culture, Mediterranean culture. Similarly, like the green region, as you can see, 7.2 is affected by Arabic culture. So they speak more Arabic. They have more Arabic loanwords as opposed to modern Istanbul Turkish. So these are just examples. Sometimes it's hard to understand some people who speak other dialects in Turkey because it's more of people who live in cities do not actually speak those languages, even if they live in the region, those dialects, even if they live in the region, because of the fact that we have been modernized, uh, because we have to understand each other in universities, in academic context, in politics. So people usually who live in rural areas speak those, and when you encounter those people, it's sometimes really difficult to understand what they're saying. So the appeal of Turkish TV, as I've mentioned before, so soft power of Turkey, which means like the cultural effect that Turkey has over the world, has been relatively increasing over the past decade because of Turkish soap operas. So it has become a key strategy, let's say, of Turkish um, people to like impose their culture on the world. We are a relatively small country, so it's very important for Turkish people to get to know, to foreigners to get to know them better. So I think Turkish people are pretty happy about the popularity of Turkish series. Um, so the rise of private TV channels in Turkey in 1993 allowed the industry to grow. Turkey kind of industrialized a bit late. So Turkey got into the TV series late game a bit late. Just many series come and go. It's just not like a permanent market. We have a lot of series, and people in the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, watch it a lot, especially in Pakistan, for example, like MENA region and Pakistan, Afghanistan. They watch it a lot if they are able to. So some examples are, for example, Muhteşem Yüzyıl, which demonstrates like the all times like history of Turkey, the Ottoman Empire. So I'd say like it's more of a culture experience too to watch Turkish series. So TV series for language learning. So I'd like to talk about my experience first, about my I acquired languages while like watching TV. I've never went. I never went to a school that has their language of instruction as English until high school. So the only thing that taught me English very well, I'd say, was Turkish English American TV on Netflix. Um, and then when I got to high school, I did one preparation year of French because I was in a French school. Um, so I learned A2 French at the end of the preparation grade, and then I've never studied French after that. However, right now my French is at a B2 C1 level, but I've never sat down and studied it. I just listened to music, watched some things. I watched reels. I turned my computer to French, for example. So that's how I learned through exposure to the language. So I think authentic exposure to culture and the language, the grammatical structure and stuff, really helps to develop that language brain in your head and try to speak it when you have to actually, for example, when you go to a country. So also you attach an emotional connection to those to that language that you want to learn, since you would want to continue actually watching those series. Some series are really good, and if you continue to watch it, have an emotional attachment to the series, then you would more likely to feel comfortable with the language because you hear it every day, you hear it in your comfort zone. Um, and also, of course, it mimics real life situations. For example, if you encounter someone in the street, you wouldn't be speaking textbook Turkish. You wouldn't be speaking textbook English, French, Italian, whatever. So um, it helps understand how Turkish people really speak when they interact with each other. So Turkish is usually seen as a phonetic language. However, some things are not pronounced as they're written. And it may be confusing because Turkish also has a grammatical structure that is very confusing, even confusing sometimes for Turkish people. So it can be confusing to manage both, to navigate both when you're learning the language, unless you're trying to learn it through culture interactions and just like having fun, and trying to learn the real life things that Turkish people say. If you try to learn Turkish, that difficult language, like with a textbook, I believe that you wouldn't be able to move as fast as you would be moving when having fun, because um, with Turkish, you have to speak it, because when you come to Turkey, if you just know how to write, it wouldn't matter. You have to speak it with the locals, for example. And in order to do that, you have to be exposed to real life conversations. And those real life conversations, if you don't live in Turkey, can only be found in Turkish series like the things that I will show you. So linguistic features in Turkish series. So what can we find in Turkish series that are specific to Turkish people? For example, honorifics and formal language are demonstrated really well in Turkish series, since like it's a common theme to have rich people and poor people. So like a rich boy and a poor girl like just falling in love, and because of that, usually people refer to those rich people that own like businesses and stuff with honorifics. So I have some examples here. Bey is Mr. For example, here we have Abdullah in like the bold man. They call him Abdullah Bey, as you can see in the picture, in the thumbnail. And also Hanım is Miss or Mrs. So, for example, you can say "Sizi seviyorum Alev Hanım," which means "I love you, Miss Alev," but Alev is their first name. So it's used like that. And abi and abla. So abi means brother and abla means sister, but it's like older brother and older sister, more like. And you can also use it as if you're like a child and you want to refer to someone like a stranger that is older than you, like a teenager or something. Like you have to be kind of like respectful. You can say abi or abla, like someone who's older than you, but it's not really a professional context. So dialectal variation, also like I said, Istanbul Turkish until in Black Sea, like the northern region, and southeastern dialects are really distinct. So you can also kind of observe those differences. Even if you don't understand, you can observe the differences from the Turkish series. Common idioms and proverbs. I believe these are essential when you understand spoken Turkish and when you try to speak Turkish, because Turkish people really love their language and they love to use idioms that people really don't understand, like foreigners really don't understand. And I believe that Turkish people are one of the people that use those more compared to other nations. And also, for example, English idioms for me are kind of easy to understand because they're sometimes logical. But Turkish idioms can be deceiving. And even though I'm Turkish, I've been born and raised in Turkey, I've been raised in Istanbul. I really don't know every idiom, and I really don't know some of like the common meanings of those idioms. So it really helps to watch those series if you're a foreigner to understand the idioms. Sentence structure exposure. So that's a thing that I've been referring to. Grammatical, like structure of Turkish is really confusing. So it's like a subject, object, verb order. It's really different from English and European languages. I'd say in the Indo-European languages. So if you're like from that region, you'd have some difficulty learning Turkish. However, it's all about the exposure, I said. So everyday phrases and casual expressions, as I said, are really important. Some beginner-friendly series are like Aşk-ı Memnu. It's a really popular series. It's also have been applied like from a book. It was first a book, really famous novel, and then it was made a series. And Diriliş Ertuğrul, for example, is a very good way to understand historical settings. I think I'd say these are kind of more basic ones, although I believe that Turkish is not basic, so you would have some difficulty understanding them. So I think you have to just like study a beginner's Turkish a bit. So this is like a legend kind of in the Turkish culture. So it has been adapted into like a modern series. So that's also a very good way to immerse yourself into Turkish culture. So why Turkish, like a linguistic perspective? So it's a beautiful language, I'd say. It's kind of confusing, but it's linguistically enriching because it has a lot of loan words from French, from Arabic, from other languages, from European languages, from English. And I believe that like as a language lover, linguistics lover, I think it's fascinating to trying to understand how those words came into Turkish language and how did they find a place. And can we find like words that are of Turkish origin that can replace them? I think it's really interesting. So Arabic, Persian, French, they're all loan words that we use. For example, toilet means tuvalet in Turkish, and toilet is like French for toilet. So it's a bit similar. Some words. So I believe that it's also linguistically enriching to know Turkish. It's also a bit of an advantage if you study Middle East relations, for example, because Turkey is kind of a big player in the region, and some companies in the region would like to see Turkish. So key linguistic features in Turkish series. Like as I've said, phonological variation is a key linguistic feature. Regional accents, you can spot them easily because it's kind of really different, the words that they use, the tones that they use. So it's kind of interesting to see that because it's a bit of like a small country, but we have a lot of dialects. So collocations, for example, like conversational things are really interesting. For example, naber means what's up. Ne haber, it's written ne haber, which means what news, but it's like shortened into naber in colloquial Turkish and also sometimes in written contexts because it's said that way. And it means what's up. So hadi bakalım also means let's see, let's go, or I mean like hadi bakalım gidelim, let's go, or something like that. So it's like an encouraging phrase. So it's really interesting to see those phrases that are not the same meaning, but has a different meaning that they literally mean. I have also some different examples from Turkish series later on. So code switching and register variation. I'd say code switching some. It also goes for formal and informal, but some Turkish series have people speaking English. And it's also really interesting to see that. I always think, what would a foreigner think if they saw someone in the Turkish series speak English in the middle of their sentence? It really happens in Turkey. I do that. Everyone does that if you go to like an international school or something, if you live in Istanbul. But it's really also not common to see in the rest of Turkey. So it's really interesting to see that in Turkish series. So also idiomatic expressions are also really interesting. So for example, there's this example, azıcık aşım kaygısız başım. It means a little meal, a carefree head. Like a acheless head. That means I can get along with having a little. I don't want to have a lot. So that's like more of like a humble expression. So here are some sayings. As you can see, azıcık aşım kaygısız başım. Üzüm üzüme baka baka kararır. Grapes darken by looking at each other, which means you behave the same when you are close to someone who's bad. One hand is superior to another. El elden üstündür. Ne ekersen onu biçersin. You reap what you sow. So that means for example, that basically means karma. Like that means that you get the response of what you do. So the thing that you do bad will be reciprocated. So here are some examples. If you want, you can just take a photo of them. These are really interesting considering that they're sometimes not really expected meaning-wise. So colloquial phrases, also like these are really interesting. I've just included them if you want to take a picture, just like look at them. So I will pass. So I have some Turkish series that I want to show parts of. So this series is Kızılcık Şerbeti, which is cranberry sorbet. This recounts the story of two families, that one more conservative, one more liberal and modern, having to marry like their children and having conflicts. So can we play the first video?
Beni hala bilmiyor galiba.
Yok, daha henüz söylemedim.
Kızım senin ceketin nerede?
Hemen gidip geliyorum hocam.
Çabuk, tören başlayacak.
Burada gebelik testi istenmemiş ama yaptırmak isterseniz çünkü septomlarınız birebir gebelikte aynı.
Fatih farklı kalibrede bir çocuk, başka kültürden gelmiş bir çocuk. Ya burada anneannenin elini öptü Allah aşkına Doğa. Sanki evleneceksin.
Ben hamileyim.
Senin ağzından çıkarı kulakların duyuyor mu Doğa?
Anne,
Ben senin öğrencin değilim. Ben senin kızınım. Biraz şefkat göster ya, birazcık.
Tamam madem Allah bize bir evlat vermeye karar vermiş. O zaman biz de aile oluruz.
Bu yavru Allah'ın lütfu. O istemiş, bize de kabul etmek düşer. Gel kızım. Allah bir yastıkta kocasın. Yavrunuzu sağlıkla büyütmek nasip etsin.
Cümleten hayırlı akşamlar efendim.
Kızımın evlenmesini istemezdim.
Kıvılcım Hanım, ben de karımın eğitimine devam etmesinden yanayım.
Oğlum, hanım ne demek, anne diyeceksin.
Bizde bu tarz hitapların bir önemi yoktur.
Artık siz biz diye bir şey yok. Aile olduk, öyle değil mi?
Sen mutlu olamadın ya. Kimsenin mutlu olacağına inanmıyorsun.
Ne olacak peki abi şimdi? İptal mi düğün?
Ne münasebet ya. O düğün yapılacak. İş inada bindi bir kere. Kıvılcım Hanım gelse de yapılacak, gelmese de yapılacak.
Biz tanıştığımızda benim nasıl bir ailem olduğunu biliyordun. Ya şimdi mi battı sana onların modern olması?
Ha bu modernlik mi? Ayrıca ben bunun böyle olacağını bilseydim.
Beğenmiyorsan evlenmeseydin.
Hanımın gece dışarı çıkıyor, sen ne yaptığını bilmiyorsun. Bizim bir itibarımız, bir adımız var.
Biz onlara bir saygısızlık yapıyoruz.
Kim benim kızıma sen niye örtülüsün diyebilir ya? Ne haddine?
Kız kıza dedin, ailecek dedim. Benim aileme ters gelmesine rağmen sırf sen kırılma, üzülme diye tamam dedim.
Hadi sen ne demeye getiriyorsun?
Olmaz Doğa. Olmaz.
Return to the presentation. Okay. So what happened? So this series is, as I've said, a conflict between a conservative family and a modern family. So this series was really popular when it came out a few years ago, since Turkey, since we have like kind of an oppressive environment, political environment in Turkey, unfortunately. We don't really get to talk about the conflict between the conservative, like religious Turks and the modern Turks in the media. So this series was also some government agencies, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, have tried to prevent it from streaming. However, it was really popular, so some people really enjoyed it. It brought up issues that people really couldn't discuss. Cultural issues, issues of Islam and modernity in Turkey. So it was really interesting to watch it, and also watched parts of it. This was just a trailer of the first episode. So, for example, I've included some things that the characters said that are interesting. For example, yok means no in this context, but normally it's used to indicate the non-existence of something. So, for example, süt yok means we don't have milk. Milk is not existent, for example. So kızım, for example, as a word, it's used when you're talking to a younger girl. For example, our teachers would call their students kızım or oğlum. It's like a kind of an endearment word to address them. But it's also like usually it's like the original meaning is my daughter. So it's kind of like an endearment thing that Turkish people have adopted and use really commonly in schools. Like, for example, my aunt would call me oğlum, my son, but I'm not her son. It's like just like an addressing away. So kissing the hand of elderly, for example, it's more of like a conservative thing, but a lot of modern Turks also do this because their grandparents are used to this culture. So kissing the hand of an elderly and like bringing their hand to your face, it's just a sign of respect. It's done in like religious or national holidays, when you receive money from them as like just to buy candy or something. It's just like a sign of respect. But in this movie, it's in this series, it's portrayed as a thing. It's associated with conservatism and Islam. Yes, it's true. It's kind of conservative thing, but it's part of the Turkish culture. Allah aşkına, for example, means for God's sake. We use Allah, the Arabic word, for God in Turkish. But the original Turkish word for God is Tanrı. So this literally means for God's love, but it's used for God's sake. I have another like saying, ağzından çıkanı kulakların duyuyor mu? Do your ears hear what just came out of your mouth? It just literally means that. So do you hear what you just said? It means. So as I've said, this series portrays the theme of Islam and the conflicts that they have. It also portrays the discrimination against hijabi women in a modern Turkish society. In Istanbul, some people would be prejudiced against hijabi women. So as opposed to like the common perception, Turkey has kind of a relatively large, like a population which is modern and which is really prejudiced against religious Muslims. So can we play the other video?
Benim ve 5 kardeşimin doğup büyüdüğü ev. Burası da bir köye benzeyen mahallemiz. Siz şimdi bu dağ taşı görünce inanmazsınız ama burası İstanbul'un göbeği. Vallahi İstanbul'un göbeği. Ne de olsa çeşit çeşit İstanbul var. Bizim hikayemiz de bu İstanbul'da geçiyor. Ben kim miyim? Ben Filiz. Filiz Elibol. Elibol ailesinin ablası. Malikanemize hoş geldiniz. Bu da malikanemizin demirbaşı, Biricik babam. Rahmet, Hikmet, Fikret, hadi 7:30 oldu.
Tamam 5 dakikada.
Hala 5 dakika diyor. Giriyorum. Hadi kalk. Kalk. Saat 7:30. Hadi. Saat 7:30.
Abla ya.
Geç.
Çok sıkıştım. Acayip sıkıştım. Lan oğlum. Nasıl sıkıştım ben girdim. Girdim bile girdim. Lan oğlum
Kiraz.
sen girdin.
Ah, İsmet de mi uyanmış?
Altına bile yaptı.
Oh,
Kafa yaptı.
Aferin aşkıma. Gel bakalım.
Okay, so this is a story of a family, a relatively modern family, like a liberal family, living in the slums of Istanbul. So they are not wealthy. Their conditions are not wealthy. So it is a reality of living in Istanbul. So most of Istanbul is not rich. Most of Turkey is not rich, as you might guess. So they're living in a poor mahalle, which means so neighborhood in Turkish. So Istanbul'un göbeği, they said, is the heart of Istanbul, the city center of Istanbul. So I'll explain this a little bit. So the thing is, in Istanbul, because I want you to understand the culture of Turkey and what you would expect if you come to Turkey. So when you come to Istanbul, you'll see these touristic places, very luxury like malls, very high quality food. However, tourists and the wealthy population are the only ones that can access those luxuries. So people who live in the slums of Istanbul or who are even middle class cannot really afford to do those kinds of leisure activities. So this is a really good example of how Turkish people sometimes can live in Istanbul. Istanbul is a really, really expensive city. Also, considering the economic crisis that Turkey is in right now. So this family, for example, in this series, is living in hard conditions. They have a lot of children. Their sister's looking out for them. Their dad is not really there for them. It's kind of the reality of the situation. The girl in the series is aware of that. They show the luxury, the city part of Istanbul, and the slums of Istanbul, and says, "This is our story. This is our life." So I wanted to mention that. So gecekondu, they're living in a kind of a gecekondu, which means slum of Istanbul. And then they use the word biricik, which means dear, which is like an endearment word, kind of, which kind of means only one, my only one. Like bir means one, biricik. Lan is a colloquial reaction to something, like it can be for anything, but it's like kind of rude to say lan in professional situations, of course. For example, our teachers in school would be mad at us if we said lan to each other. It's not an insult, but it's just a reaction that is kind of unprofessional and rude. So oğlum also means my brother, as I've said, to address a younger male person. However, oğlum also means dude or bro. So it means literally my son, but it also means dude. Aşkım is my love and could be used for non-romantic endearment and affection. You can't say aşkım to anyone. You can say aşkım to... It's weird if you say to someone your age, your colleagues, but it's like you can say it to your children. And also I'd like to address something. So for example, in Turkish, we have the way we say she or he is gender neutral. We say o, just o. And I think it's beautiful because we don't have to try to kind of create this culture that should exist for trans people and non-binary people, and get into conflicts with conservatives while doing that. So we already have a gender neutral pronoun. It's really amazing. So now I think I can address some questions and I can move on later. So I'll read the first question. So where can I watch Turkish series online for free? So the thing is, when I've been searching for these clips and searching for Turkish series, I have used YouTube. So Turkish people, after the series have been streamed on the TV, on the national TV or in the TV, they can access it through YouTube. But usually their subtitles are not in English, and if they sometimes they are, but some series do not have English subtitles. So if you can access them online on YouTube, but if you cannot, it's a bit difficult. But since they're really popular, those extremely popular series usually have English subtitles, so I think you can watch them on YouTube. And also, if you have Netflix, for example, or other streaming services, they have Turkish series, and I have an example coming up that's on Netflix that's really interesting. If you have Netflix, it's not for free, but you can watch it from there. So the second question, where is the best way to find Turkish series and films? Also, maybe something like audiobook collection. So as I said, the best way to find Turkish series is YouTube, but the best way to find films is through Netflix. And through, like, we used to watch with CDs, but I don't think they're existent right now. So you can watch in some like sketchy sites. Sometimes I do that too, because some series do not come up on Netflix or on Turkish TV or cinema. We cannot go to the movie theater and watch them. So sometimes I use sketchy websites, unfortunately, because they might have content that the Turkish government wouldn't necessarily approve of. For example, like LGBTQ couples or something. Sometimes if they're Turkish made, they do not come up on movie theaters, like all the time. They do not come up, never. So I usually watch them like on sketchy websites. You can watch them through that or Netflix for films, but for series, you can watch them on YouTube. Like an audiobook collection, I believe you can find podcasts on Spotify. But for audiobooks, Storytel is a good option. you can use that app. I think there are really good books that have been like put audio on, so you can use Storytel and like apps like that. So the third question, what TV series that are not dramas would you recommend to someone whose level is B or C in Turkish? Okay, so B or C, not like there are not dramas, like there are not soap operas. I think most series in Turkey are soap operas, but if you go onto Netflix, you can find things that are not really that like cheesy, that cliche. Especially if you're like B or C in Turkish, you can utilize Netflix or other like Disney Plus or something, Amazon, to find non-drama content. I have a recommendation. I watched a film actually recently. That name is Yurt, dormitory in English. If you write dormitory, like Turkish film dormitory or something like that, you may find it. And I believe it was beautiful. It was kind of recounted the story of two oppression in Islamic dormitories in Turkey in the 1980s. So it was a really historic and cultural experience for me too, even as a Turkish person. And I believe it's really beautiful to see. And also, probably the implication was the boy was homosexual. So I believe that it's like a criticism towards the Turkish society also. So it's really beautiful. So do you also expose yourself, the fourth question, do you also expose yourself to any type of TV series every time you learn a foreign language? If yes, what TV series do you usually watch? In English, as I've said, I'm now fluent in English, so all my media consumption is in English. So I watch Modern Family, I watch Friends, I recently watched Killing Eve on Netflix. I watch Netflix a lot. I watch Dynasty. I watch a lot of series. And for French, I don't remember any French series that I watched specifically, but for Italian, I watched like a children's series named Diaries, in order to for it to be more basic. So it was really fun. And also for German, I have a recommendation that you can find on YouTube. Nico's Weg, for example, is a really good resource for people who want to learn German. Any recommendations for Turkish reality TV shows? I don't really watch Turkish, so it's not my cup of tea to watch like Turkish reality shows. But I'm sure there are a lot of good Turkish reality shows. I'd say like soap operas and like dramas are really more popular. So I don't really know. So I'm sorry if I couldn't really answer your question. So I think we can move on because I have one more clip that we can watch.
Bakmadan ne kadar yalnız olduğumu, bir ailem olmadığını hatırlatıyor bana. İnsan ailesini seçemez derler. Aslında seçebilirsin.
Çık be karşısına. Yetimhanede yaşıyor kız.
Onca yıl nasıl ki birbirimizin hayatında yoktuysak, bundan sonra da varız.
İsmini bahşeder misin? Eğer olur da bu işi alırsam ilk gece misafir olmanı istiyorum.
Matilda.
Tilda.
Peşin peşin söyleyeyim de sonra tadımız kaçmasın.
Aynı dünyaların insanıyız demek ki.
Görüşmeyeceksin bir daha o herifle.
Sen sevmekten ne anlarsın?
Kızın yetimhanede büyümüş hanım. Sen nerelerdeydin bunca zaman?
Yaşamak istiyorum. Düşünmeden.
Hiçbir şey geride bırakalım. Bir daha benim üstüme oynama Matilda.
Senin de hayal kırıklığına uğratırım.
Beni o sahnede kanınla terinde gözyaşının hayal kırıklığına uğrat o zaman. Ama biz hayal kurmaya devam edelim.
İsmet kim?
Babam kim?
Doğu ile Batı'nın dövüşmesi gibi, sevişmesi gibi, birbirini değiştirmesi gibi. Bu ülke gibi, Türkiye gibi.
So this series is The Club, kulüp in Turkish. So I believe this is a really, really beautiful Turkish series to watch if you are on a higher level. So this is more of a cultural experience, I'd say. This is more of like professionally made Turkish series that is on Netflix actually, and I think it's the content and the meaning of the series is really beautiful. So it recounts the sort of a Sephardic Jewish community in Istanbul. It's really interesting for me because I had Sephardic Jewish friends, a lot of Sephardic Jewish friends growing up in Istanbul. I've been interested in Hebrew. I've been interested in Ladino, which is Sephardic Jewish, their language, like a kind of a mix of Spanish and Hebrew. So I think that's really beautiful. And also you can hear like code switching with Ladino also. It's really interesting to watch if you're linguistically interested. Also, I'd like to touch upon, so Matilda is the girl's name. Matilda in English, Matilda in Turkish, if you say, like it's really similar. So they do not have Turkish names. So they kind of have foreign names that derive from Hebrew sometimes, that derive from other languages sometimes, the Jewish community. For example, one of my friends' name was Liv, which is also used in English. So it's also the film includes the possible like a hidden expression of homosexual identity. I don't know if you've noticed, but I think it includes like a possibly homosexual character, and it's really interesting to see that kind of an expression in a Turkish production. So I have also some examples. So patient, for example, it means straightforward, but it's literally like patient means upfront, like paying upfront. So patient, like saying upfront, something saying upfront, like straightforward. So also herif means man. So I don't want you seeing that man. O herifle görüşmeni istemiyorum. For example, is colloquial and rude. It's a rude way of saying man in Turkish. As I've said, this is a more of a skilled production, and it shows kind of like the sociological aspects of Turkey and Turkish language, and it includes Ladino, a different language, a really endangered, a really interesting language. So I think there are like 10,000 or like 15,000 Jewish people left, like community left in Istanbul. So that's really saddening because in the last years, we've been losing those cultural richness because of the political and economic situation in Turkey. More people have been fleeing towards European countries or Israel, and if they're Jewish. So that's that. So some of the key takeaways, it's like linguistic gold mines. It's really the best strategy to watch Turkish series if you want to culturally immerse yourself into Turkish language and learn Turkish history, Jewish people, Christian people, a lot of people from Turkey. So thank you, or teşekkürler in Turkish, and good luck with learning Turkish.